Hi everybody, my name is Daniel, and in this video we're going to tear back into this Jeep again. However, the task we're going to tackle is not only specific for a Jeep. It could be used for any vehicle that has any age on it. So what I'm really talking about is going to be on the electrical side. It's the negative and the positive that are coming from the vehicle to the battery. Those are the ones that have the age. The battery's fairly new, so I don't have any issue with that. So on the negative side, I have the terminal clamp. It has been probably used the wrong tool for the job for many times to take it on and off. So you'll see that in a close-up here in a second. So I'm gonna fix and repair that. And then the lugs on the positive side, same thing. They were put on in haste and it probably just didn't have the right tool for the job. So what I'm gonna do is go correct all that so I don't have any issues in the future. I don't have any issues now, but I wanna make sure I don't have any in the future. So I think at this point, I wanna get started. So what tools are we going to use today? I'll go over the parts and then I'll go over the tools. Shouldn't be not many tools to get this job done. These are the lugs. I picked these up from Advanced Auto. You can get them from AutoZone, O'Reilly's, any of those stores. You have these. You just go to the section, the battery section. You can find that. They'll be near the battery section typically. And then I've got a universal terminal clamp, and that'll be replacing the negative terminal that I have here. I will also, I'll use some electrical tape. So I've got some electrical tape. I'm going to use what I use for sweating pipes. So I've got some flux, and I have some, some of the solder I use for that. I have a cable stripping device. I forget the name of this. I have no idea actually what the name of it is, to be honest with you. It's pretty useful, but you can use a utility knife. You can use any number of things. You just need to get the jacket off the cable. This one's nice because it has an adjustable blade on the inside that you can move up and down. So, and then there's one smaller cable I need to replace in there, and I just need to have basically a connector kit, a crimp connector thing that I have here. Maybe a utility knife, and utility knife, probably a couple assortment of pliers and things like that. And then when I get this on, I will go find the right socket for this and tighten it up properly. So at this point, I think I'm going to start on the negative side of the battery. I think that'll be the easiest one. I'm going to start with a negative terminal. So here's a closer look at what I'm talking about. As you can see on that positive terminal, somebody's probably just taken a pair of pliers or something, done that. I have these two new of these pieces here, these two connector pieces. So I'm actually going to solder those on into the socket. There's basically a little solder well that's on the back side of this, and I'm going to solder and put a better connection on the back side of this. And this is probably a ring terminal. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm going to replace this yellow cable going in here. There's a ring terminal in here. I'm going to replace that guy as well because he's about ready to come loose. Just trying to get ahead of any electrical problems now that the weather's kind of nice. This is that bird caging I was talking about. As you can see, it's been put some undue pressure on this, and what has happened is these little strands in here have kind of opened up, and this will cause some problems. Basically, they'll start to weaken, and then they'll break at this point. As you can see, somebody's really kind of beat on this thing. So I've got a replacement one of these. I've got a universal terminal. So what I'll do is I'll end up putting this into one of these kind of looks, and then I will put a new terminal on this side. So anyway, let's get started. All right, so first thing we're going to want to do is we want to take the battery out of it so that we won't possibly have a situation where we might short something out. So let me take that out real quick, and then I will be able to get back in and just focus on the negative terminal right now. So what I'm going to do on these, and I'm going to do this on all of them, I'm going to cut back a little bit because there is this small region up here where moisture can actually penetrate in here. So I'm going to cut back a little bit so I can strip it back. You don't want to cut back too far where it won't reach anymore, but half an inch or something is not going to bother that too much. And I have these are my cutters that I use, which are meant for big heavy duty cables, but a pair of diagonal cutters, you can get through that with a pair of diagonal cutters. And same thing for the other one as well. All right, here, let's take a closer look at what we're dealing with. So here is one of them that I'm going to need to replace, one of the connector ends. That's typically a crimp connector. And as you can tell there, that was probably not crimped properly because it looks like that part has opened up. I've got another video talking about these and proper ways to crimp, but that was probably crimped backwards, and what happened is it opens those pieces up and then it doesn't want to hold on to the wire very well. So I'm going to replace that. I'm going to actually solder this one in. Like I said in the other video, I prefer to do soldering, so I'm going to actually solder this connector in. You'll see how I do that. And then for these guys, same thing here. I'm going to solder these in. I'm not going to crimp them, but you can tell it probably wasn't the right tool for the job. Completed on that. And then over on the negative terminal here, this is what I'm talking about on the bird caging. Basically, those are kind of opening up. It looks like not a bird nesting, I guess is a better way to say it. And this was really just banged up, so I'm going to go ahead and replace it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy. He's just a crimp connector. So you see he's just a regular run-of-your-mill crimp connector. I'm going to take him, I'm going to twist in theory, and I'm going to pull him, I'm going to take him apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this back down the wire, and then I'm going to put this on there, and then I'm going to solder this one onto it. One thing to be cognizant of is you see there's a taper, one side smaller than the other. Make sure you get the orientation right so it'll go on there good, like that. So. I'll let this cool off for a second before I start touching it. Normally I just grab it and burn myself, and learn that I need to just give it more time. This time I'm paying attention, so I'm gonna let that cool off for a second, get it out of the way so it won't burn me. That's good. So you can see here how they tried to crimp that on there. They just kept pinching and pinching on it until they could, until they got it to bite onto it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use solder on the inside of that so that it'll have a much more positive grab on this wire. So because my soldering iron is meant for a lot smaller things, this cable's so large, I will use a little bit of flux on it to help, because even though the wire that I have is flux core, the problem is I don't think there's enough flux that's in there to go into this. So I'm just gonna give it a little help, and by putting this flux on it. This is flux you can get from the Lowe's, Home Depot, and what this does is it's the same material that you put on before you sweat pipes, so it does a good job of that. And I'm actually going to take a little blowtorch. So this guy, all I have to do is slide him back up onto this connector, and he is done. See how hot this is. Pretty toasty there. Pretty toasty there. I'm gonna put some heat shrink on there, but I can't get it too hot, because as soon as you put it on there, if it's too hot, it just shrinks right around it and doesn't do any good. So I gotta let that cool down a bit. So what I'm trying to do is make a makeshift vise in here. I think that'll be much more useful. So what I need to do is get this kind of secured some kind of way. Not enough to damage the cable in any kind of way, but at least a way to give a good bite into that. And I will clamp that to that. So I think that'll be good enough for the moment. Feel it when it pushes in there like that. You'll feel that it really wants to seat really well. You can look in there, you can see that silver. It means that it's done a good job of. I think what I'm going to do is I'll cheat a little bit. Put that in there first, and then that will give me something that will basically have solder that will go into it. So basically, it'll make sure that I have solder there. And I'm upgrading my torch to an actual propane torch now. That's all I need to do with that guy. There. Next one is the negative cable. And I'm doing this, I'm not doing the other positive cable, because I only have one more of those lugs, and I'm gonna see if I can make this. I need this one with the negative cable. I'm gonna need this one with the other lug. The other one, I might have another ring terminal that'll work for it. Looking for good clean material, and that looks pretty clean to me, because you see there's a lot of corrosion there. But if I cut back a little bit and I see clean material, that's what I'm looking for. If I don't, I'll just move back a little bit further, cut back a little bit further, and then I'll know I'll be getting into good copper. So that's what I'm looking for, is good copper. And there's a little bit of corrosion on there, so I have a little bit of slack. So look on there, you can see there's a little bit of corrosion. I'm gonna cut back a little bit further so I don't have to deal with that. So same thing here, I'm gonna clamp this guy off. So I've changed my mind a little bit. On this one, I'm going to actually put, because I don't have enough of these lugs, I do have another ring terminal. So what I'm going to do is I have one that's just slightly too small for it, but all I've done is open it up just a bit, and I'm going to solder it on there. So it should be, crimp him on to make sure he doesn't move around on me while I'm soldering him in. So as you can see, all the strands are in there, and they're pretty well bundled in there. So if I solder that together, that will be pretty good for those guys. So one thing you'll notice is when you start soldering, there we go, once it kind of goes in there, you'll see it's got pretty good coverage all the way through there. You can see it actually started leaking out the back. If you hold the soldering iron on there for a little bit longer, you'll see that it'll actually start pulling in more of that material, and what it's doing is it's wicking its way further up that cable. So that's a pretty good bond there. So one thing I'm going to do to save myself a little bit of heartache is I'm going to put these on first, and what I'm going to do is I know the orientation they need to be in and once they're in the vehicle. So these basically need to be in like that, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and install these so I don't have to worry about it, and because this is real close to that firewall, and I don't have to worry about shorting it out. So this is what it'll look like once you get it all finished up. So it's kind of, I'll put a before and after picture. Not the biggest fan of that, but that kind of works. Maybe I'll find, if I can find something better, I will. But other than that, I think that looks pretty good for what I'm looking for. Cleans it up. I don't have any more, bird nest issues with the edge of the cable, and it looks pretty good in my opinion. So probably go back through here and dress out, put some little bit of electrical tape on there just to make it look a little better. And then other than that, I think that's all I'm gonna do for the battery right now. Well, that pretty much wraps up my video for today. I got through everything I wanted to cover. It was more soldering centric than it was crimping, because if you buy one of these cable assemblies from a manufacturer, it will have one will be a lug on one end will be soldered, and then the other end will be molded directly to the terminal that bolts into the battery. I'm getting closer to that by soldering these terminal lugs on and then just bolting it onto these aftermarket terminals. It's a lot better kind of bond. You won't have as much issues with water and corrosion. So I think for this level it works good for what I wanted to convey in this video. There are, like I said, there are other methods to doing this, and a lot of people probably will go that route. I'm not buying full up assembly because I'm not spending a ton of money on this Jeep. So I'm sure there's other people out there that kind of taking the same approach with their older vehicle as I am. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, give me a like, subscribe to the channel. I have many other how-to videos that I keep cranking out, along with many things associated with this Jeep. So appreciate it, and have a good one.